Sentenced. On the day of my departure, we exchanged emotional goodbyes. A mixture of happiness, sadness, and fear gripped me. The chief guard led me out without my eyes covered. Because he did not ask me to cover my eyes, I felt more confident that I would be going home. He took me to his room and said that the Supreme Judge of the state had issued a death sentence for me. I would be moved to another prison in a different state to await my execution. The words hit me hard and my eyes went blur for a moment. Unable to stand on my feet, I leaned against the wall and slid to the floor. I said to the chief, in a barely audible voice, "I am sorry for sitting." He helped me to a chair and called the guards. I was taken to the back of a truck made for carrying prisoners. One of the higher-ranking guards handcuffed and blindfolded me. We drove for a few minutes and the truck stopped. The driver came to the back and asked the guard who had a gun in his hand to release my handcuffs and take the blindfold off my eyes. The guard obliged the driver. "Thank you very much," I said. "Forgive us for our cruelty," said the driver in response to my surprise. He jumped back into the truck and drove off. My guard looked sad. Both men were younger than I. I was 29. The car headed south of my hometown down a road where I had walked for 12 years between our house and school, the road I had driven for many years before my political problem in prison. I felt powerless. Tears were frozen in my eyes. I was unable to cry. I wanted to see my family just for a moment and then die. Like a man who has allowed his last request, I asked the guard for a favor. "Would you be able to take me to see my family for a few minutes to say goodbye and leave my clothes at home? They're just a few minutes from here." He was speechless for a moment. His eyes looked at me so meaningfully. He slowly lifted his head first, brought it down, and closed his eyes. A heavy sigh emerged from his lungs, and he said, I wish I was not here and did not have this uniform on." Then I saw him crying. Tears were streaming down his face. I stared at him in amazement. With a compassionate voice, he said, "It is your right to see your family and to be with them. More than anybody else, I believe you deserve it. This is not the right moment. What will happen when your family learns that you're going to die? Won't they mourn and raise their voices and draw the attention of all neighbors? If the mullahs hear this, won't they kill us and you on the spot? Won't they give your family a hard time?" His argument sounded very wise, and I felt embarrassed for such a request. "You're right, brother," I agreed. "I lost control of myself," I said. Astonished, he said, "Are you calling us your brother? We do not deserve to be called your brothers. Brothers solve their problems with each other through words, not through guns. We based everything in our lives on guns, which are ultimately going to kill us too." His words and company lifted me a bit, and I was able to think. I felt proud of him and thanked him, saying, "You have eased my pain." I was taken to a revolutionary garrison that also had a prison for those who opposed the mullahs. It was in Rasht, the capital city of our own state, Gilan. It was evening, and I was kept there for about an hour. Then a couple of guards came. Once more, I was blindfolded and my hands were chained. I was put in the front seat of another car. Someone else was sitting beside me in the front seat in addition to the driver. I didn't know who were in the back seats of the car, but from time to time someone coughed from behind me. Immediately I assumed that the rear seats were full. Apprehension and uncertainty overwhelmed me. The car was hot and the driver was reckless. I felt sick. I told the driver, "I don't want to create an uncomfortable situation in the car. Could you stop please so that I can get out and have a bit of fresh air?" The driver did not believe me. He asked, "Are you really feeling sick or are you planning to escape?" However, he did stop, giving me a respite before resuming the drive. Around midnight, we reached another prison in Chalus, a city in the state of Mazandaran. My captors released me to another team of jailors. I was taken to a room where 4 other prisoners were being held. 2 of them had been with me only a couple of days before and asked me to visit their families when I was released. The third man was the one whose ear was almost cut off because of me. When he saw me, he came forward, cried, and apologized to me. He said that while he was being judged, he wrote a letter falsifying his testimony against me and gave it to the revolutionary judge. The 4th person in the room was my dear friend, whom I loved but had not seen for years. I had heard that he had been killed in a clash with the mullahs' forces, but that was not certain. For years, he had hidden himself from the mullahs. He was a militia member of the Mojahedin Khalq of Iran and fought for the Mojahedin until he was eventually caught. Our friendship was not because of politics. His family lived in a village a few kilometers from us towards the Caspian Sea. We attended the same school. While I was a senior high school student, he was in middle school. We saw each other every day. When I was in university and he still in high school, He learned of my financial distress and went to work in a low-paying job in order to help me. I was humbled and grateful, but expressed my concern in a thank you note that the extra work could interfere with his studies. In response, he wrote, "In our town, everyone is speaking about your courage and the hardship you went through to remain in school. I have 2 reasons to support you. First, if you fail, I will fail too, because many fathers, including my father, will be disappointed and eventually will put pressure on their sons to stop their education. Second, I see you as my older brother. I will work in order to help you. When you finish your education and get a job, then you can help me to go through university." For this reason, I loved him for his thoughtfulness and caring heart. He was a great thinker. He was my friend and like my little brother, and now I saw that he was going to die with me. We embraced and quietly cried. Had they known we were friends, the guards of this prison would not have put us together for fear of conspiracy against them. It was hard for me to see my friend carrying a death sentence on his shoulders. I was supposed to get a job and help him finish university. But now, the only job remaining for both of us was death, to take our desires with us to the tomb and leave the ongoing dictatorship of Iran to live longer. The thought of his death reduced the pressure of my death sentence on me. This is the culture of brotherhood in Iran. The pain of the death sentence of the older brother is swallowed up in the pain of his younger brother. I hope to be taken to the death square ahead of him to spare me the pain of seeing him die. In the meantime, we were waiting to be separated from each other, so we talked for as long as we could. The following day, I was taken to another room where 4 other political prisoners also awaited execution in death row. The rooms had no windows, but there was a small hole in the wall near the ceiling. I could distinguish the sound of the prisoners' slippers from the solid walk of the guards. For 2 months, no one was taken from our room to the death chamber. Twice, guards came to videotape confessions of favor toward the mullahs. My cellmates relented and confessed, but I refused. They rationalized, saying, if you speak evil about yourselves and nice about the ruling mullahs, they might reduce your death sentence to life imprisonment. They convinced nearly all prisoners to comply, but those who had death sentences were still killed.